And now it's my pleasure to introduce our first alumnus speaker, Mary Barney. She's CEO of the Girl Scouts of Connecticut. Perhaps you've read her full bio, which is on our website and in your program. I wanted to highlight just a few of her many accomplishments and attributes. Mary has been an advocate for women throughout her impressive financial career, during which she was named to the top 50 most powerful women list. I imagine there are quite a number of people in this room who might be able to join Mary on that list. The numerous awards she has received throughout her career include her mentoring of young women and helping them climb the corporate ladder. She is a true woman for others. Indeed, her desire to work with younger women upon retirement speaks to this lifelong dedication. And as she has shared, being a Girl Scout in Brooklyn set her on her path of high finance and smart business acumen. It's a pleasure to welcome Mary back to the Fordham stage to share her knowledge about financial literacy and how taking control of our finances helps us take control of our lives. Mary, welcome.
So I guess you're all wondering, like, what the heck is the CEO of Girl Scouts of Connecticut doing here to talk about financial empowerment? And I guess I'm also going to talk about what I call financial feminism, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in some depth. But I want to say for some of the younger women here who are trying to figure out what career path they should follow, don't despair. It actually took me more than 30 years to figure out that I wanted to spend my working days in an organization that directly impacts the empowerment of girls and women. But I have to say, it was all the years working in financial services that helped to form me, and helped to form me as a business leader who's not afraid to make decisions, and gave me the financial resources to pursue this very rewarding, what I call my encore career. You ready to get down to business? So who has seen this these statues on Wall Street? Anybody? I have to say, I love this statue, and I love the statue of the bull because when I was working on Wall Street early in my career, I used to think, wow, that's really what Wall Street is all about, the power and the defiance and the willingness to make change in the world. But then about 2 years ago, maybe a little less than that, State Street Global Investors put up the Defiant Girl. And what I love about that is it speaks to me about the power and energy that we as women have to really make an impact on our world. It talks about our fearlessness and courage, and also our resilience in the face of challenges. To me, it's the perfect metaphor for women, money, and power. When it comes to money, sometimes isn't there that little girl in all of us? We are intimidated and lack confidence to make our money work for us. Sometimes we choose to just delegate away our financial power to our fathers, our spouses, and our male financial advisors. But I love this girl because she is looking that bull straight in the eyes and showing no fear. Having spent more than 35 years in the financial industry, many of them on Wall Street, I've seen really a lot of ups and downs in the market. I'm also currently still serving on the board of a mutual fund company, so it really keeps me involved in that, and we certainly know that there's certainly a lot of ups and downs going on in the market every day. But I've also observed the very scary emotional roller coaster that can accompany investing. Investing is about money and numbers and rates of return, but it's also a cause of great emotional conflict and stress for many. Women, especially and in general, seem to be a bit more risk-averse and emotional when it comes to making decisions around money and finances. Can any of you relate to that? Come on. We don't have time to go into this today, but psychologists have really done many studies and works about money personalities. And how many of you really kind of know your money personality? I mean, it's really important. Dr. Kathleen Gurney has written a book about this, and you can also take a quiz right on her website to see how you relate to the different money personality types. And it's really important that you do this before you even launch into any work around your own views and feelings and plans about money, because you really need to understand your money personality. You might find that you're a money hoarder. You might find that you're in total denial about financial realities, and you might be one of those spend now and worry later people. But it's a really good idea to understand your attitudes and your emotions about money before you can determine what is the right plan for you. So just go ahead and Google Dr. Kathleen Gurney or money personality when you have a chance, and you could actually go right onto her website and take a quiz to find out. I think I have a bipolar money personality because I'm a very savvy investor, but I also have, occasional bouts as a spender. So you can also be a bipolar money personality. So, but ladies, what we're here to do today, and gentlemen, is to debunk the myth that women can't be fearless like our Wall Street girl. We can be in control of our money and our finances. And we also want you to leave here believing that women comprise a very important social and economic resource in not only investing in financial assets like stocks and bonds, but also through the impact that their economic power has on the well-being of our world. I like to quote Mao Zedong when I say, "Women hold up half the sky." That is actually one of my favorite quotes. And what does that mean? It means that women and men together can make this world the world it should be and could be. While we have our own unique gifts to offer the world, we also don't want to forget that we wield very significant economic power and clout. So, I hope you're all ready to join the financial feminist movement. With the Women's March last January, we witnessed perhaps a resurgence in the idea of a feminist movement in our country. And I promise you, I'm not here today to talk about politics. That is way too depressing. But I think that I want to stress to all of you that we can all be members. We can all be involved in what I call financial feminism. And that's a movement where we can use our resources to shape the world that we want to see around us. What is the world that we want to see? So we know money is power, and we know that we can control it. And you can make it work for you. Some of you know Sally, who Sally Krawcheck is. She was the CFO of Citibank. She later became the head of Smith Barney and had a very significant leadership job later on at Merrill Lynch. And Sally says, "We women will never be equal with men until we are financially equal with men." And that's really something really important to think about. So much for the so-called weaker sex. If you think women's financial muscle is not relevant in our country and our world today, you better think again. Consider this. If you look at the IRS personal wealth tables, more than 43% of the nation's top wealth holders are women. 1.2 million women own 4.6 trillion, or nearly 42% of total wealth. These numbers vary, and there are many different interpretations, but really today, I want you to leave here today with a sense of your own absolute wealth and not your wealth relative to anyone else. And what does that? It's really important. Like when we do investing sometimes for our client, when I used to do investing for our clients when I worked in the financial industry, we'd say it's not how much you're making compared to your next door neighbor or someone else. It's how much money you need to have the life that you want. So it's an absolute, not a relative measure. And that's what we want you to think about today. I think it's really important that we all think about what is that absolute level of wealth that is really required and important in our lives. As consumer businesses know, if you think of us women as an emerging economy, think about emerging market economies, we're probably poised for more growth than several small emerging countries. Our purchasing power is ginormous. So just think of ourselves as a powerful emerging market country. Women are prodigious consumers. 85% of consumer sales in the world are from women. So we are driving the economies of so many countries. We know we're living longer. We know we're becoming more educated. And we know we're making some headway in business and government. But as we all know, there are still pay equity gaps to resolve in many, many sectors of the economy. Men are living longer too, and I think that's probably because we take such good care of them. And we take care of our kids, and we take care of our parents. But women traditionally have outlived their male partners, and that's a reality we have to face as we plan our own financial futures. Women have a growing influence as investors. There's a woman who's become a philanthropist in her life, Jackie Zahner, who was a senior executive at Goldman Sachs, and some of you may have heard her. She's really working on this entire initiative for impact investing. I'm going to talk a little bit about impact investing. But the study that her foundation recently fielded said that we will go as women from 14 trillion in 2016 in investing to 22 trillion in 2020. So you can see we will have a profound influence in the financial, the philanthropic, and the corporate sectors. Impact investing is a phenomenon we will address a little bit more later, but I want to say this important point. While men invest to earn a return, women often invest to make a difference. And that really is a very important, and it's really documented in quite a few studies that are done. Let me see where I am now. Bear with me one second. So there's going to also be a huge, and this is a good thing to think about, a huge intergenerational transfer of wealth of over $41 trillion over the next 40 years. 70 of which, of that 41 trillion, will go to women because of our longevity, because we do outlive men. In fact, in a recent study post-recession, women showed that, and this is an interesting one, women showed, now we all remember the recession, right, of 2008, 2009, women showed that their portfolios performed slightly better than their male counterparts with less risk because men tend to trade more often than women. In the 1990s, men traded 45% more. They traded their portfolios 45% more than women. And this is really attributed to what we call male overconfidence. You know, I want to invest for return. I want to invest for growth. And women and men have a propensity to take more risks than women do. And we know that that's, you know, not for everyone, but it's a general factor. Women invest more like Warren Buffett. Long-term, less trading. The flip side is very often we lack the confidence about investing, and we can be more risk-averse, and taking healthy risks is a good thing. Taking control financially is not only a further step towards our emancipation, but let's face it, it's just plain old necessary for many of us. Listen to this one, nearly 90% of women are going to have to take control over their own or their family's finances at some point in their lives. So we have about 200 women in the room. That means only 20 of you are not going to have to take over your own financial control at some point in your lives. There are more single family households. In Connecticut, where I live, 37% of young people live in single family households. It's an amazing number, stunning. We know more women are primary breadwinners in their families. Let's face it, many of us know what it's like to have adult children back at home, which is something that didn't happen years ago. And these are all realities of our times. Divorce still affects more than 50% of marriages. And there are many, many more non-traditional families. We know that. The typical family is no longer typical. And I think that is something that is part of our society and here to stay. 700,000 of us women will lose our husbands every year and will live as widows for an average of 14 years. So that is a long period of time. 40% of older women will have nothing but Social Security to live on. Women's median retirement income is only about 58% of that of men, largely because many women spend fewer consecutive years in the workforce, and it's actually an average of 12 years fewer. So That's something we think about too, and sometimes that's an argument for why there is a pay equity gap. But I still think it's a little bit disingenuous to say if you're doing the exact same job of someone at the exact same time that you shouldn't be paid the same amount of money. But that's another seminar that we'll do. So there's a word that I will share with you, which is called Metta Phobia. Does anyone know what it means? Metta Phobia? It's actually is the fear of money. Now, I don't have a fear of money, but we do know that many women do have another affliction called arithmophobia, which is a fear of math. So some of you may be in recovery from these illnesses. Go ahead and admit it. But what we have to do is we just have to throw off the yoke of stereotyping our gender when it comes to money and finance. I see too many young girls in my job in Girl Scouts who run away from advanced studies in math or science because the female role models in their lives demonstrate a lack of confidence in these areas and don't encourage them to push forward. So if you are afraid and have nightmares about calculus, don't spread your arithmophobia to anyone else, especially a younger woman. It's really important. I think, and I've met the most intelligent women who just basically say they don't feel comfortable working with numbers. And it's just simply not true. They have to feel inside themselves that power. So why aren't we more confident as investors? I think there are good reasons for that. That's our bag lady. A lot of studies have shown that a lot of women actually, and I'll tell you a story about one who used to be one of our clients, really have this fear that they're going to outlive their money and they're going to actually live in poverty and not be able to support themselves. But why aren't they more confident? Well, first of all, we spend in our lifetimes less time on investment activities. No one teaches financial literacy in our schools, and can you imagine that in this day and age? We don't teach financial literacy in our schools. And it's even worse for women, because when they get to be in junior high school, they really start to pull back from feeling a level of confidence in their ability to understand numbers and to feel confident with them. In one of our Girl Scout studies about financial literacy and girls, we found that when girls had positive financial role models in their lives and mentors, they were more confident about working with money. And that really is a problem in our society, because I saw it in my own family where my stepdaughter, my granddaughter is amazing. She's a senior in high school. She's a math wizard. And my own stepdaughter is like, don't ask me, I don't know math. And that is like really, if you don't know it, just encourage them to continue it, because it's really important. For some of you who know that I work for the Girl Scouts, know that our iconic cookie program, which is kind of what everybody relates us to, which there's so much more, that's another seminar. But our iconic cookie program is just seen maybe as a way for the little cute girls to peddle cookies outside of the Stop and Shop. But the program has 5 stated outcomes that we believe will build a girl's confidence and financial muscle: goal setting, decision-making, money management, communicating with the public, and very important, business ethics, which we all know is really important. And that was actually one of the best courses I took here in GABELLI, is my business ethics course. So next time that you buy a box or 2 of Girl Scout cookies, ask the girls you're buying from what their goal is and how they plan to use the money they earn from the cookie sale. And just as an aside, in Connecticut, our girls sell 2.1 million boxes of cookies every year, and they earn about $1 a box. So nearly $2 million goes right back to them, and they put that money into community service. They put it into working on their Take Action projects, their trips. So it's really social enterprise. And so I think it's really important. And again, that's another element of women in business, that so many of us look at women in business and want to do something to make the world a better place. Women don't take responsibility very often until they're forced to, financial responsibility. And that's when it's often too late. A divorce, a loss of a spouse, it's too late then. You really need to do it now. We tend to have lower risk tolerance. I don't know how you change that, except it comes by conditioning. I think you have to allow yourself to think about what's the worst thing that can happen if you make a decision. And we do that in other parts of our lives, but if you just say, what's the worst thing that can happen, then what outcome you might expect. We need more on-ramps like this program. How do women get into the traffic, into the mainstream of really understanding and living with financial freedom and living with financial power? There are lots of more online resources now than ever before. There are safe places to learn and experiment. Back in the olden days, we used to have investment clubs. I don't really see them much anymore. We know we have a lot of book clubs that women go to, but I think women's community impact, which is what we're talking about today, is so important to helping us to have that support network where we can really be with others and mentors and others and peers and really feel confident and comfortable. As women, we know the power of our networks and the impact that we can have working collectively for our causes. And I'm going to just mention another reason why women probably aren't as successful or confident is trust. It's such an important word. And if you're single, the question is, where do you go for investment advice? Whom can you trust? If you're married, do you leave it all to your spouse? Have you met with your financial advisor? Do you even know who your financial advisor is? Do you even like or trust your financial advisor? That should be table stakes. If any of you is working with a financial advisor, you should never work with someone that isn't willing to spend time with you. So I want to talk a little bit about a study that was done by Allianz Research. Allianz is an investment company, financial company. This was a study done in 2016, it's pretty recent, and over 2,000 women were involved, ages 25 to 75, and they wanted to look at what was happening with women after the Great Recession. Like, what were some of our feelings and attitudes about investing and money? So what they found in this study was that 50%, remember 2,000 women ages 25 to 75, 50% of all women who responded say they often or sometimes worry about losing all their money and becoming homeless. 50%. It's a lot. And I'll tell you a story about one of our UBS clients that I had a while ago when I was working in the financial industry. This is a lovely woman who was probably in her 70s. Her husband passed away, and they had an estate. He had left her with $36 million. So I bet Hope wishes she knew her. But anyway, I can't give you her name, Hope. But I will tell you that she came to see me one day, and she said, and had been maybe less than a year since her husband had passed away, and she had some children and grandchildren. And she said, Mary, do you think it's okay if I buy a new car? Do you think it's okay if I go on this trip to Europe? And I said, listen, you can buy a small third world country. I mean, but the whole idea of women wanting to take care of themselves and letting go and not feeling like she couldn't touch that money because for some reason she might become homeless or spend it all, or had some sense that she was required to save it for her children or her grandchildren. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the crisis. So there's a myth that the same symbol for crisis in the Chinese alphabet is used to denote opportunity. So I did some research for this talk, and I wanted to put that very dramatic, everyone know the symbol, that very dramatic symbol on the screen. But I did learn, in fact, that it is not true, if you are in fact Chinese. So alas, I'm not going to use it here in order to be fully truthful and transparent. And I think it's very important that the person talking to you about financial stuff is telling you the honest truth. I did want to put it there, but it actually doesn't. Crisis doesn't equal opportunity in that symbol. If anyone's here Asian, you might know that that's true. So whether the Chinese character works or not as a symbol, we can really look back at history and find so many examples where individuals found opportunities during times of crisis and challenge. And even if many of us haven't fared all that well, or we don't think we fared that well since the recession of 2008 and 2009, we can't decide to relinquish control of our futures. We just have to take responsibility. So let's look at the aftermath of the financial crisis of 2008 and 2009. Who remembers it? I know that was among my last years in the financial industry. It took a lot out of me. I always say the first 35 were wonderful, the last 3 were tough. So has it shaped your own views on investment strategies? So in the Allianz study, Most respondents said they didn't, this is women, most respondents said they didn't feel smarter or more in control than before the crisis. In fact, they might have become more scared or more cautious. So they felt they didn't get any learning from the experience. Although, of the women they interviewed or they surveyed, 57% reported that they had more earning power since 2008 and 2009. 2/3 were the primary breadwinners in their families, and many felt they really couldn't depend on their spouse to handle their investments. So where do we go from there? And by the way, since 2008, the S&P is up 220%. So if you had your money in the market, you would have actually been better off than panicking and getting out. So here's kind of the punchline. We want you to become a true financial feminist. You have to be able to look yourself confidently in the mirror and say, I feel confident that I'm spending, saving, and investing wisely. You have to feel confident saying, becoming more knowledgeable financially has made a real difference in the quality of my life and maybe in the lives of others, because that's what we're here to talk about today. If you can say these things, congratulations, you have arrived as a real woman of influence. But for many of us, we still harbor our self-doubts and misgivings. But there is a way out, and you're here today to take the next steps in your ability to become this woman of influence. So the pathway to confidence is to commit to it, to commit to confidence. And I think find a way to learn. If you feel uncomfortable, find a way to learn that works for you. There are so many choices now. There's for the younger women here, maybe it's robo-investing. There's actually more technology involved in it for some of us who would rather work more on a personal level with a financial advisor. You just want to be aware of the unconscious bias, though, of some of the financial advisors, because sometimes they may look at you as a woman and think that you're not smart enough or bright enough to understand something. And you want to be careful of that one that says, don't worry, I'll take care of you, because you can't delegate this to somebody else. It really has to be something you care about. You want to take advantage of any opportunity you have to save and invest. You know, I used to teach a financial literacy course for women in Philadelphia when I was working there, and these were women who came from more modest needs, and I just told them, every day put your spare change in a jar. Every day, just empty your wallet of all your nickels and your dimes and your quarters. And you know, one of them actually had $1,000 at the end of the year. Truly amazing. And it works, because my husband does it. That's where I learned it from. And, you know, every day we go to the bank that has the thing, it's shooting a thing, and we put the money in, and it's $1,000 every year. So it's just one thing to do about. But you could also budget your money that's earmarked for investment and philanthropy. For younger women, if you're not putting as much as you can in your 401k or your IRA, you're missing an opportunity, especially if your employer has a match for you. For older women, this is the really fun part. It's time for you to determine what your legacy is. What is your legacy? You want to find a plan that suits you. They don't call it planned giving for nothing. You know, you really want to sit down with someone who's an expert and say, this is what I want my legacy to be in terms of, and you know, you can change it. Like, let's say you do it at age 50, and when you're 62, you have different circumstances. Maybe you have more money, maybe you have less money. You can change your plan. But I think it's important to have a plan. And there are so many ways you can do it. Planned giving, donor-advised funds, things called charitable remainder trusts. If you have an IRA and you have a required minimum distribution, that's for anyone who's over 70 and a half, you can actually put up to $100,000. I know the tax code might be changing, but for now, you can put up to $100,000 a year without paying any penalties or taxes into a charitable organization. So there are really some amazing things you can do if you're talking to the right advisor. Remember, it's your money. It doesn't belong to your kids or your grandkids. Use it for what will make you happy and fulfilled in this life and the next. And a very simple thing to do is, if you have an IRA or a 401k or an insurance policy, you could just even designate a charity as your beneficiary. And here's a good one, appreciated stock. You can donate, if any of you have did anyone buy Apple in the 90s at $6 a share? Yay! You're sitting pretty. Great investment. And I made my son sell his, and he'll never forgive me. Oh no, this company will never make it, when Steve Jobs left the first time. But I will tell you that, that you can donate that actually to a charity without actually paying taxes on any depreciation. So those are things that you can do, but if you need an advisor to help you, or I know Fordham has a wonderful philanthropy group here that can help you with some of this planning. You want to cross the bridge, even from financial feminist to philanthropist. Don't be afraid. When we talked about this, Susan and Mary Lou and I, before we had the opportunity to come and speak to you, we talked about it. Do we feel a little funny as women saying we're philanthropists? Does it seem? And I know they're going to talk about that later. But own it. Own it. If you care about making the world a better place and you're giving, even if it's $100 or your time, it's really you're a philanthropist, and it's really okay to say that. I tell my little Girl Scouts they are philanthropists when they use the money they earn from their cookie sale to help the homeless, to bring blankets and dog toys to the shelter, or to put the money towards helping others, which they do all the time. So, we're going to put our philanthropic feet forward with purpose. Some of you have heard the expression time, talent, and treasure. That's what I do a lot of fundraising for the Girl Scouts. And I think that, it's not just the money. It's also the time. It's bringing your talent to an organization. You want to get to the heart of your passions and the change that you want to see in the world. So think about that today. If you can leave here, what do you want to change in the world? What is the thing that you want to have a part of? And then you can figure out what you can do. And I'm telling you this, focus only on those charities and organizations that fulfill your passions. We get a lot of calls. I get phone calls every day from different organizations or different political parties. And you got to do what's important to you. You got to choose what's important and focus yourself. There's a lot of noise out there and many good causes, so you have to focus and commit. And you can volunteer and raise money for a charity. You can volunteer your time with a charity. You can connect to join a giving circle. We're going to talk about that today. You can volunteer. You can be an ambassador from an organization. So I received my MBA from Fordham, and it was really like deja vu walking down 60th Street today, but there was no Starbucks when I was here, so you don't know how lucky you are, because the coffee used to really be bad when I used to get to class at night. And I got my BA from NYU, and I had a totally free ride at NYU. And when I think about the value of that education and the fact that I, as a middle-class kid from Brooklyn, could never have attended that without the support, isn't it time that we all join together to make great education possible to bright kids who might otherwise not have the opportunity to attend a great institution like Fordham? Investing in a cause you believe in has its own return on investment. When I ask people to donate to the Girl Scouts, I don't say, can you make a donation? I say, will you invest in the future of girls? We've talked a lot today about investing in financial assets, and that is really one of the steps in the process of making investments in the things that you want to change in the world, because you need the money, you need the power, and that's what impact investing is. So, what I want you to do today before you leave is write down one goal that you have that's going to require some money in the future. Doesn't have to be a trip or a car or a wedding or a new home. It can be a dream that you have to make the world a better place. Is it possible for me to endow a scholarship for a promising student here at Fordham? What can I do to ensure that more girls achieve their goals and dreams? And how much am I going to need? And then I want you to do, and think about what are the things you can stop doing to work towards that goal? Are we spending too much money on frappuccinos and things like, seriously, we get ourselves into these modes where what can we give up so that we can fulfill our own philanthropic goals and needs. But I want you to write it down, what you want to do, and put it in your purse. Better yet, put it in your wallet, because that'll remind you. And think about what can you do today when you leave this room to begin to work on your journey toward financial feminism and philanthropy. You know the answer. So I'm going to end with a story. Let me go back, sorry. So these are little Girl Scouts in Paris. You see them, the little brownie Girl Scouts. And they wanted to go to Paris. And so when they started selling Girl Scout cookies when they were daisies, which is the littlest group of Girl Scouts, they set a goal. How much money are we going to need to go to Paris? And they sold enough Girl Scout cookies over the last couple of years to do that. And there they are in Paris. So, 7 years old, Paris. Dream big. And I'll just leave you with that and say, Paris, here we come. Thank you very much.